Welcome to Theory Paranormal. This is Pax with my co-host Dalton. This is going to be podcast episode number 3, and it is going to be what is the most haunted city in the United States and what is the most haunted city claimed to be in all of Europe. So, the reason for this podcast is because everybody always talks about, well, this city's haunted, or this town is haunted, or this house is haunted. But collectively, nobody ever talks about, hey, this whole place is haunted, or this place has tons of stuff going on. It's always a singular place, usually. Rather, it's urban legend, or it's a well-known fact that's publicized everywhere on the internets, or in books, or word of mouth. So I got curious and wanted to know, after much research, where were the 2 most haunted towns, cities by density for the most things happening. So as always, Dalton's here, co-hosting this wonderful Theory Paranormal podcast with me, Pax. And tell us what's going on in your world today, Dalton.
Oh, man, just work. Podcast, work. You know how it goes.
Is this where you start whistling while you work?
That's right. My 6 little friends will follow me around.
There you go. That was a reference.
So we kind of went to a little fun deal here. I think it's kind of a little fun thing. It's little fact checked on some places. So I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, we decided to pit each other against each other to see who could find out some of the coolest tidbits and facts, supposedly, and opinions on 2 different locations that are literally quite opposite from each other around the world. So let's play a game, because I don't know your city, Dalton, and you don't know my city. So I'm going to take a few guesses of what I think the most haunted city in the United States is, and you can tell me if wrong or right, okay?
What the most haunted city in the U.S. is?
Yes, I want to tell you what I think it is, and you can tell me if
What
I'm
do you think it is?
I would honestly think it would probably be one of the original founding cities because it has the most history, so that gives it the most time. I'm thinking Jamestown, Virginia, which is one of the original colonies, or the first colony, if I remember correctly, from U.S. history. So I'm thinking it might be that city or that town in Virginia. Is that right? Wrong. Oh man, here we go. It's on now. Okay. How about
actually, well, you want another guess? Is that what you're trying?
Yeah.
How many guesses you want?
Give me 3 guesses, okay? Okay. So if it's not Jamestown, Virginia, let me think of other places that have had lots of history. How about the Gold Rush era over in California? That whole region. I'm blanking out, and this is just not helping me. Where all the Gold Rush was in the hills in California back in the day. Because I know a lot of people, unfortunately, had bad things happen, trying to splunk around in caves, finding gold, and trying to do all that. Is it on the west coast of California somewhere, or in the mountains?
Wrong.
Great. Here we go.
Last chance.
Last chance. Okay.
I feel like Steve Harvey in the Family Feud. The X comes.
All right.
Is that your final answer? Yeah.
All right. So I did the east and I did the west. All right. I'm going to go south this time, thinking of history. And I got to go with the Wild West. How about down in Texas? Like, let's try for, where was the San Antonio? How about that whole region? because there's a lot of stuff that's happened from the Wild West back in the day. A lot of activity and stuff.
You know, I mean, all those places you're naming are probably got some haunts. We know California has got a lot of haunts. You know, all the Jamestown, Pennsylvania, all that is haunted. And I'm sure there was haunts in San Antonio, but you're wrong again.
Great. Great. Hey. I like to think I made a good attempt there. I tried. I really did. So
Well, the most haunted city, there's a couple of them that are pretty much in line with each other. The first one would be New Orleans.
okay.
So if you just went a state over to Louisiana, went to New Orleans. New Orleans being because, well, of course, of the voodoo culture and the stuff that they do in voodoo, ghosts, etc.
Okay.
Like you have the notable ghosts include that Marie Laveau, if I pronounced her name right. I think they even made a song after a famous voodoo queen, but also a lot of Civil War action in New Orleans. So, but Gettysburg, Pennsylvania is in line with that.
Okay.
We don't have to explain Gettysburg. Everybody knows it's one of the bloodiest battles in the Civil War.
Yeah. Well, Civil
But
War, American Civil War.
Yes. But the one that I was looking at was Savannah, Georgia.
Savannah, Georgia. So is that is that more or less the top of the list from what you're thinking?
Like, well, the way that when I did research on like haunted cities in America and et cetera, New Orleans, Savannah, and Gettysburg popped up as like the top three. They didn't put them in order like 1, 2, and 3, like which one's more haunted than the other, but they did list those three mainly. Those three keep popping up: New Orleans, Savannah, and Gettysburg.
Okay.
So I just picked Savannah because Gettysburg is a give me. New Orleans would have been interesting, but that's multiple rabbit holes you can go down about New Orleans with the voodoo and the different types of culture and things like that. The cemeteries that are there, the St. Louis Cemetery is like number one haunted sites in New Orleans. They often report ghostly encounters all the time. Then they have a theater, and then they got the Faulkner House books. Those are multiple rabbit holes. So I picked one that was sort of kind of Savannah's a give me. I mean, I could have went Charleston. Charleston would have been another cool one to do, but I went with Savannah.
Okay. I can get behind it. I know I've been myself there personally, and there's a lot of stuff going on. Definitely a interesting place to go check out, whether it's for culture or if it's for food. Lots of good places to eat and drink at. Or if you want to get on the lights out side of the house, as we say in the paranormal world, to do some investigating. A lot of nice little places there. So,
well, what about you in Europe there? What
I'm going to give you 3 to make it easy, because when you are talking about Europe, there's tons of places, tons of towns. So I'm going to let you choose 3 different countries just to make it easier for you.
Countries?
Yeah, 3 different countries. And then I'll tell you if you have the right country or not. And then I'll let you pick a city or a town. So you got 3 countries to choose from. Now remember, the theme of this is the most haunted town in Europe. So
the most haunted town.
Correct. And this is supposedly through the research that I did. So
that's a big
that's a big ask right there. You got to really think about that.
I mean, that's a huge ask. I mean, Europe, man, you could be in Sweden, Switzerland, you could be in Austria, Hungary, you got London. Man, I gave you an easy one. You give me like half the world.
I just gave you a continent pretty much. Well, you gave me a continent too. Well, part of a continent.
Well, Yeah, like half the world. Denmark. Let's see. I'm gonna go.
Remember, you got to pick the country first. You get three chances.
3 chances. All right. I'm gonna go. Maybe I don't know.
Use your gut. Go with what
I'm gonna
feels right.
go. I'll start with Burgess, Belgium.
Belgium?
Yeah, Belgium. Like Burgess. What's it? Bruges or something. But Belgium.
Okay. Interesting
I know.
choice.
I know that
And
was a medieval city.
yes, it was. And I am happily to tell you, you are incorrect.
Thank.
Try again.
All right.
You can take your time.
I'm thinking that's a lot of area to cover, man. That's not like just covering 50 states. That's a crap load of destinations. I'm not okay. So
Try another country.
I'm probably gonna be wrong. Let's see, Austria.
Austria.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or
Well,
I don't know. I don't know. Austria. I don't know much
okay.
about Austria.
Is Austria your second final answer?
No, I'm gonna go Scotland.
Okay, you're okay. So you're mixing it. You're trading Austria for Scotland.
Yeah, because now Scotland hits me as there's a lot of castles. Scotland and Ireland are full of castles and a lot of haunts.
Okay. So your final second answer is
Scotland.
okay. Wow. You really had me going there. I didn't think you were going to figure it out. And I can happily tell you, you still have not figured it out.
That's
So
cool.
you get one more chance.
One more chance. All right.
One more chance.
Well, then I got to go with London or England. I mean, it's the only obvious.
You got to pick. You got to pick a country here.
Let's just go England.
England. Okay. Congratulations, Mr. Dalton. You are correct. Now, for the bonus round, do you know what town I looked into?
No, I don't. Like the obvious would be London. That would be the most obvious pick. So I'll say London.
So, believe it or not, the way it came up is it wasn't recognized as a town because there's actually, depending on the body count of people that live in an area, census wise, you have a village, a town, a city, a megatropolis, and all that stuff. It actually ended up being in northern England, and it is a city called York.
York.
Yep, is the city. So now let's bring it back to you. We'll bring it back to the States. And were you surprised that I really missed your location being the most haunted town? Or did you kind of see the places that I brought up had good standing of being a good contender, of being, a good place?
No, you were like I said, all those areas are got hauntings, but I'm surprised you jumped from Jamestown to California. I thought you would take it from like Jamestown to Charleston and then go like Savannah, because if you look, those are the three key areas of the Civil War mainly.
Yeah. Well,
So
believe it or not,
besides Gettysburg and
yeah.
whatnot,
I mean, logically, the 13 colonies were where they established the oldest cities and the towns in America from the inception of the U.S. founding America. I was leaning initially for the oldest location because I'm thinking, okay, what place has the most things happening? Obviously, it's going to be around a long time. So I thought about 13 colonies. I thought about Jamestown being the first town, notably in the United States. And so I'm thinking, okay, that might be a good winner. I was wrong, obviously. And then I thought, okay, let me go to a place that had a lot of people that went to it because of the gold rush and migration from east to west after the colonies were founded. So then I was thinking, okay, it has to be in California where the gold rush was, some town over there, because everybody and their family was trying to get on the gold rush to strike it rich and get rich back in the 1800s, 1800s when that was. And I was wrong there. So then I'm thinking, okay, where else in the United States is there a big, long, freestanding history of pioneerism, of going out and conquering lands and trying to have a way of life? And I kind of went a little dark, and I thought to myself, where was there a lot of robbery? Where was there a lot of crime? A lot of battles. And then that's when I thought of the Wild West, stagecoach robberies, robberies of towns, outlaws, bandits, all that crazy stuff that was key and pinnacle to painting America as the Wild West to the rest of the world back in the day. So I'm thinking, okay, San Antonio, maybe that's where everything happened, the Alamo. But to my dismay,
the Alamo would be an interesting place to investigate.
Yeah. Oh, it would. Unfortunately, to my dismay, I was wrong on all three accounts. But, as we do here at Theory Paranormal, we throw out our theories related to the paranormal, and we go from there. And a lot of times, believe it or not, when me and Dalton do things, for everybody that doesn't know, there's things that I know that I'll actually teach Dalton or vice versa. We don't always go into these podcasts where everything's known to each other. So a lot of times he's imparting information or wisdom, or I am. And it's either a learning moment, a teaching moment, or it's a time and place to where we're putting information out there to let everybody learn with us. So, but that was my thought process on where I thought the oldest location was for being the most haunted in the United States. So,
yeah, well, picking your areas, being the history of Scotland, all the stuff that happened to the Scottish. I mean, even leading up to, what was it? The movie Braveheart that explained that guy that, pretty much got the people together to free themselves from a tyranny. But, all the medieval stuff that was over there, between Scotland and, just Belgium, and then even England, and I can understand York. York had a lot of torture going on there. So a lot of restless stuff happening there. I can see that pick being wise. So you want to go first? You want me to go first, or who's going first?
How can we do this? Let's see. Well, I fairly can't ask you a question 1 to 10, picking a number, because I know what the number is. Sure, I'll do that. Pick a number 1 to 10, and if you guess the right number, you can go first.
Well, that's kind of unfair, because you could just be like, "Yeah, that's it. Go on."
You see, that's the great thing about statistics and odds. You don't know until you guess.
Yeah, 6.
Oh, looks like I go first. Actually, the number
right.
I was thinking was 7.
Yeah, I was close. See, folks, we can sometimes get in tune with each other, and then sometimes we're very close, very close. But it happens. Go ahead.
But the cool thing is, Dalton does know at times I do like coffee with some cream and 2 sugars, so that's pretty neat.
Yeah, and I tell you to go make it yourself. All right, let's go.
So, in regards to York being pretty much one of the most haunted places in Europe, there has statistically been over 500 recorded hauntings. For anybody that is into the paranormal, that's pretty expansive. I mean, that's huge. For anybody that is in the paranormal field like me and Dalton, or if you're just starting out and you haven't really had a chance to go around, a lot of places They might have something that happens that is, an anniversary happens on a certain time of the year, or it might be something random, but it's just known for a particular area. But to have 500 recorded events, that's pretty dense as far as the area, and to have that many things all, in such a place. So that's definitely pretty notable as far as it goes. This particular city, which I found pretty interesting, it's been all over the place. It originally started back in the day of the Roman times, and over expansion and conquering and different factions, ultimately there was just a lot of war, unfortunately, and a lot of takeover in lands. And as anybody that's fought along with me and Dalton here, they're paranormal referencing old podcasts, and we talked about displacing energy or events happening, staining an area with energy or residue of energy. All of that stuff, I wholeheartedly believe, over time of all these events, unfortunately, tainted the area and left the areas with different residual things that have happened. So you have a lot of history there, you know. One thing that is really, really interesting is, as I brought up the fact of the Romans being there, basically there's a location, and I love the name, called the Treasurer's House. And basically there's legionnaires, Roman legionnaires that are there. And how the Treasurer's House got its mainstay of fanfare was back in the 50s, a plumber was doing some work and he saw a bunch of them. I mean, that's pretty epic. When you think about the paranormal, I know in my mind, when I think about the paranormal, it's about ghosts or a sound or something happening inside of a residence, something falling or footsteps or things like that. Sometimes in the South of America, of the United States, you are more or less subjected to things of basically seeing apparitions, seeing some displacements of color, colonial era, vintage type people in that period of dress style. But over in Europe, you're not dealing with history that was 100 years ago or 200 years ago. You're dealing with history that could be, if not hundreds, thousands years ago. So seeing Roman legionnaires, which is pretty awesome. Now, there was another place that really took my interest. And unfortunately, there was an event where an individual got hung. And still to this day, people say that they see her face in windows. And this event that occurred that originally happened with this individual was back in 1825. So you're talking well over, what, 1825, 1925, 2025. So you're literally talking 200 years ago. And still to this day, people see this individual. And this is located at Mad Alice Lane. And the individual was named Alice Smith. To be able to have something that is still lingering and consistent for that long, that's a big, powerful, oomph of energy that's just being residual there. Now, one thing that may sound like a cliche is you always hear about a lady waiting for somebody, a husband, a boyfriend, a loved one, a jilted lover, whoever, that's always somewhere by a window, walking down the hallway, whatever the case may be. So, over at a place that is the York Theater Royale, there is a instance by an individual named the Gray Lady. Basically, she was punished by a nun for a forbidden love that she had. And to think about, energy and emotions and how all that affects things when events happen, for an entity to be scornful and angry and to punish somebody, that's a wicked type of energy in my mind. So to be able to see this Gray Lady nun that is just so filled with something to imprint on somebody else's decision that they didn't agree with them morally or then their virtues, that's a pretty big conviction there.
Now, when they see this lady or whatever, do they see her hanging, or is she like walking around?
Well, no. The individual previous to the Gray Lady was Mad Alice Lane location, and that was Alice Smith. Her face was just seen in various windows. That was her. But the last location I just mentioned, over at the York Theatre Royale, is haunted by a Gray Lady, and she was a nun that was punished for her forbidden love.
So she cheated?
Well, it was a nun that was punished for her forbidden love.
Oh, she was a nun?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, they're not supposed to have relationships.
Exactly. It's supposed to be celibate and devoted to what they believe in for their lifestyle and their life's purpose. So that's a lot of energy. You're being punished for someone's ideals and virtues and morals that are potentially being broken versus somebody's faith. So that's a lot of energy. Now, basically,
over there they take their faith pretty seriously.
Oh, yeah, without
Back
a doubt.
in that day, especially.
Oh, without a doubt. Now, this may sound like a cliche, but a lot of the pubs have stuff happen also, including a sighting of Lady Ann Peckett and countless other spirits notable throughout the ages. And all it really is just individuals that were known for a variety of things here and there throughout the ages that, common everyday people. And a lot of people say to me, once they find out about my hobby within the paranormal, a little bit of my background, because I'll be honest, I really don't divulge my background in the paranormal to anybody. It's not something I just freely put out there. I'm more than happy to do the podcast and impart things and explain things and share opinions and all that. But a lot of this is, as you know, Dalton, it's just not every single day, conversational topic. It's not like I'm going through a drive-through going, yeah, can I get a number 2 with a Coke and fries? And by the way, I'm a paranormal investigator. I just don't put it out there. But what I'm trying to say is that a lot of haunted places aren't going to always necessarily have a bad story associated to it. And by bad, I mean something that happened that was detrimental or negative or didn't have a happy reasoning for the purpose of the haunting or the activity of paranormal activity in the first place. So a lot of places that are haunted, though, 9 times out of 10 usually have a rich history. They usually have either sadness, strife, war, or a major event that changed the local area. And that's all part of imprinting and energy and things that go with all of that, which we have podcasts on. If you're curious about those words or anything about energy, defer back to Energy Podcast that we did in season 2 with me and Dalton here at Theory Paranormal. It's there. It'll explain it all to you and you can check it out and then come back and continue with this podcast. So, but as far as it goes with York, though, ultimately, those are just some of the places that I saw that took my interest and thought was pretty neat, Mr. Dalton. So what is
Yeah, I was looking
what
while you was kind of talking about some stuff. I also kind of looked up a few things, and I found like the headless coachman, York's, and possibly the UK's ghost with the least heads to bodies ratio is a headless coachman dressed in all in black, driving a coach pulled by 4 black headless horses. Bishop Thorpe Road. Along that road, there have been basically a lot of sightings of this headless coachman, which is pretty cool. I guess that's their version of the headless horseman. And then the other one, which was in that I remember, and I had to look it up, but it was also in the movie Ghostbusters, which was basically where they were in the library and they had the floating book. You remember that?
Yep.
I think it was in the first one. So York's most famous ghost story is probably Harry Martindale's encounter with the Roman soldiers in the cellar of the treasurer's house, which you mentioned the treasurer's house. But however, in 53, the year it happened, this was not the ghost story everybody was talking about. Edmund Wooler and the Flying Book at the Yorkshire Museum, where Ghostbusters filmed, was far more famous. Even so, that the Society for Physical Research investigated the spooky encounter that was going on there. So, like the Romans, the haunting was said to repeat throughout the year, then vanish again, reoccurring on a 7-year cycle. So, just something there that it's called the Flying Book. But you're right about the Romans being there. There's a lot of stuff, cool stuff there. A lot of cool stuff over there. I'd like to get over to Scotland sometime and do some paranormal investigating in some of them big castles. But cool, yeah, interesting stuff there.
Yes, sir. Now, as far as it goes, what's your 2 cents on your locations?
Well, Savannah's rich in a lot of history, slavery, and other things. The main thing that always comes to mind with Savannah is Sherman's march when he marched through Georgia, went through Atlanta, and then it was basically a military campaign of the Civil War conducted through Georgia from November 15th until December 21st, 1864, by William Tecumseh Sherman. And it began in November, and then the troops went through Atlanta. They did whatever, but they saved, they burned down Atlanta, right?
Yep.
And they were burning down like all the places that march that Sherman went through. He would just torch it. And for some reason, he decided not to torch Savannah. Now, this would take us off topic for me to kind of go into all that, but basically he gave Savannah as a Christmas present to Abraham Lincoln. And Lincoln took it, they did whatever, and they started doing their thing. I'm trying not to go in, I'm not going into it. So, but what makes Savannah haunted? Okay. So everybody knows the Civil War part that I just mentioned, everything like that. But Savannah's haunted reputation is basically a result in its rich history of the city's foundation. The foundation that the city was built on is what makes it haunted. So here we go again. It's not really it's not really the buildings. It's the land that it was built on. So you figure before the cities were built and everything like that, and you had plantations and you had slaves. Well, there was really no special place to bury these slaves. So they built the city on ancient burial grounds. A lot of the ancient stuff I can't really, like, in my research, about a month ago, I think I researched some of this. When it says ancient burial grounds, I was looking up why they would call it ancient. Like, you're thinking of an ancient civilization. So you'd be thinking like, maybe some kind of Native American stuff or maybe some Vikings, because the Vikings were actually the first ones to discover the U.S. They just didn't know it. But the city was built directly on unmarked graves, forgotten cemeteries, and burial sites dating back centuries. Now, this disregard to all that, you know what happens if you go in and you know, we have one in our state where they built something and it disrupted burial grounds that they kind of didn't know that was there from people living around that area
Oh,
when they built that bridge.
yep.
So you know how it goes. And that's anywhere. You do not disturb the burial grounds. Now we say, oh, when people pass away, they go back to where they're most happy, which would be their house or wherever. That mainly there's not a whole lot of dead hanging around a graveyard or a cemetery. So there is a difference between the two. But anyway, so when you disturb that grave, though, you're disturbing their remains, and that's, to me, this is my opinion, to me is what disrupts the energy and the spirit itself, if that makes sense. So basically, the disregard for the dead has left Savannah with a restless spirit population. I like how they say that, a restless spirit population. Many of the city's cemeteries, such as Colonial Park Cemetery and Bonaventure Cemetery, are known for their haunting, their beauty, and their eerie tranquility. They are listed as Savannah, like in the top 5 of Savannah's most haunted places, those 2 cemeteries. The architectural beauty, if you ever been to Savannah, I don't look at the architect as far as the buildings. I like the old houses, like all the old 1800 style homes that were built and that were refurbished. But as a combination, it has the historical significance and the presence of supernatural. It basically creates for a really good environment for hauntings. Now, a couple of the most haunted places, the one that caught my eye, you got the Hamilton Turner Inn, a lot of hotels there. There's a bunch of them that are haunted, but
No, not
I
a
was trying to
haunted
find
hotel. That's
no,
new.
that's that's why I'm skipping over that. So this place was once a saloon or a rest stop for seafarers. Let me see if you know which one I'm talking about. From abroad. Still stands today as one of Savannah's most well-known restaurants. However, the seafarers that came there were certain type of seafarers, and this place cannot escape its dark past. Many were brutally shanghaied down, basically in the boarding house basement. So it was in the basement. A lot of stuff happened. It's always in the basement. Not really, but I'm just saying.
Hmm.
And forced to serve on the sea. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's the Pirate's House. You ever heard of the Pirate's House in Savannah?
Yes. But pray
Right.
tell, please explain for everybody listening.
That the Pirate's House, where it was a place that actually stood, and when they said seafarers, they meant pirates that would come there, drink, whatever. And when they say brutally shanghaied in the basement, whatever, and they were forced to serve on the sea, they were made sailors, basically. They say there's many secrets to be discovered at this place. Uh, you can go in there and eat. They're supposed to have good food or whatever. I mean, I read some other things, but it's just an interesting place that it's an actual building that still stands and exists and it looks like when you look at the photo of it, I mean, it looks like it's been kind of refurbished a little bit and some things were added to it, but just to know that pirates came there, that's an interesting place that I would love to go visit. But being that Savannah was built on several burial grounds, and here we are primarily for enslaved Africans and their descendants. Many of these burial grounds were secretly built over time, often forgotten and later paved over, but they still exist today. So imagine, like, I mean, don't they do any ground sonar or anything to find out what they're paving over? They just went in there and just paved over these burial sites. But like I said, the Calhoun Square, the Whitfield Square were originally burial grounds for enslaved Africans and are now recognized as sacred spaces. The founders initially had no designated burial sites. Like I said, the original founders of Savannah, when they just had the plantations, and basically what I'm gathering is, they had these slaves, and when the slaves passed away, or their descendants, like some of their family members, they just went out there and found a field and basically, slavery was a bad thing. I mean, I am from the South. Yes, Ulysses S. Grant's my fifth greatest uncle, but he was against slavery. His wife had slaves. He married a woman that had slaves, but he was still against it. And I don't, I don't. So being Southern, I don't want people to get confused on anything about my thought process on that. It was a horrible thing. Any kind of slavery, whether I mean, heck, the Irish, you know, were like some of the first, basically the first slaves, and they were treated wrongfully, kept in cages and stuff. And we can go on about that, but I just want people to understand when I talk about slavery, it's a horrible thing. And for these people to have been buried in that city the way that they were, and then nobody, I don't know why, it raises questions for me, actually. It's probably why I picked this city. Raises questions. How can you go in there and just build a city and nowhere at any time did anybody did any, sonar penetration or ground penetration to find out what's under the ground before they built?
So what you're saying ultimately is, unfortunately, back in the day, there's no accountability. People did things they shouldn't have done. And it might contribute to why there's so much activity present day.
Yeah, there's a lot of restless spirits.
Hey, definitely
Because
makes sense.
right. So these city founders, it started leading to the construction of buildings over these graves, which has been a topic. It's actually been a topic of ongoing discussion and effort to acknowledge their history. That's cool. Like they're trying to figure out what's what, and they're trying to bring it to light, which I think is good. It needs to be, and that might, bringing it to light might give those restless spirits a little bit of peace, and they might calm down a little bit. But the burial grounds were the only legal places in Savannah where slaves could be basically interred from 1763 to 1851, highlighting the city's complex relationship with its past. And these burial grounds reflect the city's rich history and the ongoing efforts to honor its ancestors. For them to, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do is to figure out what's what and start honoring some of these folks, because there's a lot of famous people that were slaves that were well known for what they did for their culture and their people. So yes, if some of those people are buried around there, they should be honored. So to go into some of the places, I'm going to pick your favorite. You know this place. Can you guess what it is? I put a rock in my pocket and somebody touched me.
Decisions. I'm going to let you tell me.
It's Moon River Brewing, man. Come on. Moon River Brewing, known as the most haunted building in Savannah, it has a history dating back to the 1800s. What do you know about the Moon River Brewing? You kind of mentioned it in another podcast.
Sure did.
What was that? What was that building actually used for? Something in the Civil War?
If I remember correctly, during the Civil War, it was used as an infirmary, and also an infirmary, and also a headquarters. Now, I may be wrong. I'll own it just because I haven't thought about this in a good minute. But you're putting me on the spot, so.
I like doing that. Anyway, today it's a restaurant bar.
Yep. Great food. Great beer.
You can go there. If you visit Savannah, you can go there. They have ghost tours, stuff like that. And if you have a group, a paranormal group, they will allow you to investigate. I don't think they'll let you go up to the top floor anymore. But so the Moon River Brewing, it's located basically in the former City Hotel It was built in 1821 on a lot purchased 4 years earlier by this guy's wife. Not only was it the first hotel in Savannah, but it was also home for the first branch of the United States Post Office in Savannah. Don't they have the original museum in there? And they're like a little museum down in there.
Yep.
So, as well as the branch of the Bank of the United States, many notable people stayed in the City Hotel, including in the War of 1812, Winfield Scott, the Marquis de Lafayette, the first 3 commodores of the U.S. Navy, and naturalist John James Audubon. Audubon stayed 6 months while attempting to sell books on his wildlife sketches. In 1851, Peter Whitberger bought the City Hotel. He renovated it, put a live lion and lioness on display to draw attention to his business. Basically, it goes on with the other stuff. And yes, this one I am reading off my notes. It's a lot to remember. Then, basically, the City Hotel's final guest checked out in 1864, just before the arrival of William Tecumseh Sherman. During the Civil War and the subsequent closing of the City Hotel at the turn of the century, the building was used as a lumber and coal warehouse. As the use of coal slowly died off, the building was used for general storage in the 60s. The space was renovated and then complete. Basically, it became a large printing press probably in the late 60s and then up to the 70s. And the building sat empty till 95 when it was renovated into its current configuration, which is a brew pub. But basically, it looks like that this building was used for lumber and a coal house. So your storage, you were right, like a warehouse, I think you said, in that manner.
Yep.
The other thing that I had the note right here and I lost it. But anyway, cool place. I've never been there to investigate it. You have. Would love to go and investigate it and check it out. The other place I mentioned was the Colonial Park Cemetery and the Bonaventure Cemetery. Both cemeteries, numerous accounts of paranormal activity in those. I mentioned the Pirate's House. That's actually number 2. Moon River is number 1. Number 4 is the Marshall House. It's a historic hotel that has been a site of many ghostly encounters. Again, a hotel. Don't really want to get into the conversation of the hotel. But I guess the reason I picked Savannah was to bring out the knowledge that a lot of people were buried all over the place and they just built a city on top of them. And I guess that's me honoring them to let people know, because I could have done New Orleans, but when I read I knew years ago that Savannah was built on some burial grounds. I just didn't know what kind of burial grounds. I just knew it was burial grounds, and I knew that's why Savannah's pretty active. But once I did research a month or so ago, and I started learning what type of burial grounds and how even they're trying to acknowledge and bring it out on what transpired there, what happened, how they built that city. I figured I would talk about that and honor the past folks that are buried basically under that city, and no reason why that place is really haunted. So it's kind of my skit on Savannah there.
It's quite a mouthful.
A little bit. There's a little bit more, but like I said, it takes it down another rabbit hole, that really kind of takes us off subject, and I wasn't trying to go there.
No, I definitely understand. Ultimately, what me and Dalton are trying to convey is that no matter where you are in the world, there's paranormal activity, there's history, there is good stories, there's bad stories that originate to why haunted places happen, and for people to travel to explore, to experience, to get involved with, and to learn the history of the hows, whats, whens, wheres, and whys something is going on at a location. I can speak for myself. I'm not sure for you, Dalton. I mean, I have an idea, but anytime I go to a new location, rather it's a known location that I have limited history on, I have a lot of history on, or I have nothing, I always find it interesting to be able to learn about said locations and to see what's going on with them. Each location's different, and you always want to know what all the nooks and crannies are. What are all the special things that make each location special? What are the details that may not be normally publicized or put out there? What can you find out that might add to the story or add to credence of why something happened if you're doing an investigation? That's the thing I enjoy. You know, as me and Dalton have stated before, uh, the paranormal is part of our life. It's a big part of our life, whether we like it or not, for a variety of reasons. But every day we are constantly learning something new. We are constantly being engaging in it and exploring. And every time we do an investigation, there's something else that gets brought to light that we weren't aware of. And besides being a professional paranormal researcher / investigator, then understanding many things about this genre / environment, we're average everyday people. As if we didn't know anything about the paranormal, we get into a situation, we try to learn and absorb and, take the experience for what it is. That's one of the things the most that I enjoy personally about the paranormal is exploring, seeing what it has to offer in that moment or that location or that adventure, to see what I can learn. And then when I'm done, reflect and take away from, to say, hey, I learned this about this place, or I learned this and I already knew that, but I learned 5 new things. And it makes the journey and the history and the story for me personally that much more richer. I definitely encourage anybody that's into the paranormal, that is just getting into it, or maybe is a seasoned researcher or investigator. I challenge each and every one of you to pick a location, even if you can't get there personally. Do some research. Try to find some stuff out about it that you normally wouldn't look into, and push yourself a little bit, because that thirst for knowledge, that curiosity of wanting to know, is what's going to help give you better results, potentially, in your next investigation for wherever that may be, if you're able to. So, as far as it goes for this podcast of the most haunted towns in the United States and Europe, I think that pretty much concludes it, Dalton. Was there anything else you wanted to add for this episode?
Yeah, let's talk about it for a second, because I brought it up.
Sure.
And it was mentioned to us. Why don't we do something about it? It's in our state. It's on I-4. It's a bridge, crosses over to St. Johns River is the one I'm talking about.
Okay.
You knew exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
It's called the I-4 Dead Zone.
I've heard of that place.
It's infamous. Right. And I've been across that bridge a few times, trucking and whatnot. It's infamous for its haunted reputation. This quarter-mile stretch of highway is said to be haunted by the spirits of settlers whose graves were paved over. Here we go. See, graves were paved over. What they're not saying is that a lot of those graves were not paved over. They were actually, when they dug out for the pillars for the bridge, they were actually digging into the grave sites. Like all the headstones.
No good.
They weren't there. They were rotted away or gone or whatever. So when they were digging, they dug out on the side, because these settlers buried their people near the river. So when they dug out parts of the embankment, what they really don't talk about is how a lot of the caskets and the stuff that people were buried in actually came out of the ground and went into the river. And you're already digging, so by the time you see stuff starting to come out, I think it was a rainy day too or something. Something was going on. But anyway, a lot of the caskets and stuff were coming out and sliding down the embankment into the river as they were digging with a backhoe. So some of the areas was paved over. A lot of them, the bodies of the deceased wound up going into the river. So this area is believed to be cursed. Strange occurrences such as static on radios, phantom truckers, yeah, okay, and ghostly hitchhikers. Ghostly hitchhikers? I can see that. The bridge is located near St. Johns River and is part of the highway that runs from Tampa to Daytona. The legend of I-4 dead zone has led to numerous car accidents and fatalities, making it basically a site of interest for paranormal seekers and investigators. But a little bit of it, this unassuming quarter mile is said to be basically one of the most haunted highways in the nation. It's the site of failed German immigrant colony and the final resting place of settlers who died during the horrific yellow fever outbreak in 1887. It said the deadly consequences were in store for anyone who disrupted the burying ground, including the developers who paved over it and built the road and the bridge that stands today. Now, basically, the history in the 1870s, a real estate mogul named Henry Sanford, I guess, the founder of Sanford, marketed the southern shore of Lakeman Road to incoming immigrants and potential citrus farmers. He sold 640 acres to a group of German immigrants who founded St. Joseph Catholic Colony. A religious group, right? St. Joseph Catholic Colony sounds like a religious group. Prior to this, the area was untamed wilderness with nothing but Floridian wildlife and a hand-operated river ferry. I guess went from one side to the other. The land was part of a large grant owned by Henry Sanford, basically the head of the Florida Land and Colonization Company in 1886. A tiny railroad station was built. We know where that's at. And the land was divided into 10-acre parcels to sell off to potential farmers and investors. One of these tenants was a group called Catholic Immigrants. Their priest, Felix Swinburne, oversaw the settlement. According to a Central Florida historian, colonization efforts ended after only 4 families moved to the area. The St. Joseph Catholic Colony never really took off, and in 1887, a yellow fever outbreak sealed the fate of the land forever. Now, this disease killed 4 members of one of the families, and with the rest of the colonists fearing that the fever was contagious, the bodies of the dead were buried in the woods just north of the railroad, where Swinburne was called back to the area to perform the last rites of the deceased, but he never returned to the colony. Just 3 days after arriving in Tampa, he succumbed to the fever, and his death went to basically the known location of the grave sites where they knew where most of them were buried. Now, some believe that because these people never received their last rites, their souls cannot rest and roam the area. That's a whole nother subject we can talk about. It gets a little religious, and I don't really I don't like to get into religion, and they're angry at the living. This may explain the bizarre happenings surrounding the stretch of road today. Over the years, the story of the colony became something of a legend. It's believed that bad luck would befall anyone who tampered with the grave sites. Locals say that a farmer's house burned to the ground and was reduced to smoldering embers after he removed the grave markers. Oh, here we go. Now we know why there's no grave markers.
Yep.
This farmer removed them, and what do you think's going to happen? Oh, I'm sorry, your house burned down. And later, a child was run down by a drunk driver after he dug around the site during play. Now, that right there is kind of sad. The kid didn't know where he was. And if this farmer wouldn't have removed the gravestones, the grave markers, the child probably wouldn't have been digging around there. That's kind of, I didn't know that until I just read that. But anyway, just enough unexplainable activity was occurring to earn the area the grim nickname Field of the Dead. I did not know that they called it Field of the Dead. So the field was sold to the state when Florida began to purchase land to build a new highway. While the graves were intended to be moved, they were deemed unimportant and forgotten. Shame on you people. The field was paved over.
Okay. So
Go ahead.
so what you're saying, basically, make a long story short, there's an overpass somewhere in Florida that has a waterway under it that used to have a bunch of people buried there, and flooding happened. The graves,
Well,
unfortunately,
the
got
flooding
displaced
happened.
because of flooding.
Well, the flooding happened after the state basically deemed unimportant and forgotten, and the field was paved over as if it wasn't hollowed ground. The state went ahead and built a road there.
So basically, because it wasn't a sanctured cemetery, basically, it was an unofficial cemetery, and the state either had no records or they didn't acknowledge it. From what it sounds like you're saying.
Well, it was. Well, what it was, the farmer removed the gravestones, which made it unsanctioned. It was a sanctioned graveyard.
But it made it what's the word I'm looking for here? It was unidentifiable at that point. Nobody really saw it. They didn't know.
Well, and they deemed it unimportant and forgotten, like it's a forgotten deal. But because I'm pretty sure because there was no gravestones because of that farmer.
Okay.
They just figured it wasn't important because it's unmarked graves. So it could be a bunch of dogs or cats that passed away. You know what? They don't know.
Okay, so
even though they should have done their research, I don't see how they couldn't have done their research to find out what was buried there. But
okay, so ultimately, all of these people that perished for whatever reason, unfortunately, their graves Yellow fever.
Were you listening?
Yeah. But my point is that the whole reason why you're bringing this particular piece up was because this was mentioned to you in passing. And is the area overly haunted, or are strange things happening? This overpass, what's the correlation is what I'm trying to connect the dots on.
Well, I'm telling you the story that builds up to what it is.
Okay.
So after it was paved over, soon after, when fill dirt was dumped on the site, in true Florida fashion, a hurricane ravaged the area. Here comes your flooding. Hurricane Donna changed course, passing over the gravesite on September 10th, 1960, and leaving a wake of destruction in her path. The flooding caused by Donna disrupted highway construction for months and probably was the worst storm to hit the interior of Central Florida in centuries. The weirder fact, the hurricane followed an inexplicable path, and basically, when the eye of the storm passing over the gravesite just around midnight, many locals believe that the highway construction tampering with the dead caused by the path of Donna. Basically, in 2004, another hurricane, Charlie, took the same route as Donna, passed over the gravesite. Unsurprisingly, construction work was happening around the gravesite when the hurricane arrived. That was the two different floodings that, because of the construction, I'm going to assume that's how a lot of that stuff was weakened up, and a lot of those graves were just falling out into the river.
Yeah,
I do erosion
and all that.
Right.
Is that what? Yeah, that's what you call it.
So it goes on to cell phones are known to pick up voices. Interesting. At the south end of the I-4 bridge, it's basically infamous for inexplicable amount of deadly car accidents. On the day of the interstate was open for traffic, a truck hauling frozen shrimp was the dead zone's first casualty. It lost control and jackknifed right above the grave sites. Frequently, deadly accidents are believed to be caused by the spirits of the dead buried beneath the cold cement on the highway. The problem is, I'm wondering how far, because I know that area, and I'm wondering how far, because that's a bridge, right? So there's nothing on the ground. It's over the water, but how much of I-4 is actually covering the grave sites? How far? After you get off the bridge and back onto the ground from one side of the river to let's say the Sanford. I'll tell you where it's at, Sanford, Florida. So you come over that bridge into Sanford on I-4, I wonder how much of that concrete highway is covering the grave, because the way I always took it, it was closer to the river, kind of where they dropped the poles. What's your thought?
It's interesting. It sounds like there's a lot of different experiences depending on the person at hand here for this event. And
Well, they're talking cell phones.
well, right, that's what
They're
I'm
talking
saying.
accidents. They're
Yeah.
talking
I mean, it's kind of
CB
right.
radios.
It's all over the board, but it's all revolved around vehicles and electronics. You know,
They're even talking of wispy balls of light.
Right. But I haven't heard
Going
anything.
above the
I haven't heard anything of anybody saying anything about accounts locally on the ground. It's all over this. You said overpass or a road.
It's actually at the one end of the bridge and
Okay, so it's a
the
bridge.
interstate.
Okay, so it's a bridge by or on an interstate. So that's just interesting that it seems to be cornered in those particular instances for activity itself. If
Yeah,
anything, I mean, if anything, I would say I would have to see it being energy related because all of those things, you know, that's a lot.
well, you
That's just a
can't
lot of
just say
energy.
energy. You can't just say energy when you got cell phones picking up ghostly voices. You got random static on CB radios, which I've noticed too. Like going down and delivering in Florida and having to cross that to get into Orlando. My CB, there'd be like I got my swelts turned up so I don't hear the static, right?
Hmm.
And I get to that one end of the bridge, or if I'm coming back towards the other way, I'm coming back towards the East Coast, and I get to that one spot of the interstate before I get on the bridge. And when I get on the bridge, there's a weird every now and then, not all the time, but I notice there's a weird static sensation on my CB radio that isn't normal. Like it doesn't sound like normal squelch.
Huh.
So you have that, but you have ghostly hitchhikers, you have apparitions, and it basically says you name it, it's there.
That sounds like a whole lot of can of worms to unload there for that versus it being just one thing or two. I mean, that's kind of a mosh podge of a little bit of everything. You know, to answer your question, thinking about it logically from a scientific, metaphysical sense, I know those are two words that never go together. You know, that's like putting electricity and water together. You just don't do it. But I can see from a scientific level that because of the waterway, that has a lot to do with ions in the surrounding area. Water, ions, positive electric, all that good stuff. So you got that going for you. You got the energy of the people that passed away. Okay. You got all the conductive movement of all the vehicles moving. You said a bridge or overpass going in a particular direction, but you still have all that kinetic energy. Okay. So you got all these things in play at the same time. Then you have the electronics being interfered with. You said the CB radios and the cell phones.
Cell phones picking up ghostly voices.
Okay, there you go.
Phantom voices.
The reason why I bring up that is because all of that can be conductors, in my brain at least, to contribute to the paranormal activity.
Well, okay, so let me lay it out for you. You have an interstate. You have a river running between the interstate, and they built a bridge over it.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they paved over the gravesite. So first of all, so let's say that part of what I read was, and I know I read it kind of fast, but part of what I read about them saying that those people did not get their last rites. You know, it's kind of like, back in the day when say like the Battle of Troy against what was the Troy, and what was the other country that fought Troy? Anyway, when they did their burial, like when why can't I think of his name? The dude that was half God and half Achilles. When they killed his cousin, the way they buried him, like they used to set him on a fire pit, put the coins over their eyes for basically the captain of the boat or whatever they called him, so that they could cross the river and go to the afterlife, right? So lot of cultures have their beliefs, and a lot of religious, like Catholic and all that. If I'm doing this right, they have to be read their last rites, right? That's their pathway to get to heaven. Let's say, right? Am I wrong or what?
I mean, it could be.
Okay.
Depends on your theology, reasoning, and logic.
Well, no, but I'm talking about their beliefs. Like when they bury their people, they give them their last rites,
They could.
so that way they can cross over, basically. So if they didn't get their last rites and they didn't cross over, then yes, you have some angry spirits going on there. Now, hence the fact that like a lot of people when okay, Native Americans, prime example, you don't walk into their burial ground and mess with none of that stuff. None of it, right? They will kill you. Basically, back in the day, if you were in the Wild West and you ran across the burial ground, best thing you do is go around it. Don't go in it. Don't touch anything. Don't take anything. It's sacred. It's their sacred burial ground. Simply put, I would say like our cemeteries and graveyards are a sacred place that we bury our people, our culture. We put them in the ground. We read their last rites or we do whatever we do. Every culture has a different way of sending their people to the next level, to heaven or to the next realm or whatever they want to call it. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So if this priest didn't make it there, he died in Tampa of yellow fever. Now he was buried amongst the regular cemetery that they'd built, not the one that was where it's at. There was another cemetery with a bunch of marked graves where the other people were buried. He was buried there. But if he didn't make it to that colony, now you're talking about the Christ, what I say they were, the Christ colony or Christian colony or whatever they were. Basically, the St. Joseph's Catholic colony. Okay, Catholic. So you're Catholic. Catholic folks, you need to be basically read your last rites so you can move to heaven. And these Catholic immigrants, if their belief was that, and this priest didn't make it because he died of yellow fever, they didn't get read their last rites. Now you have a ton of angry spirits. Now you have a graveyard, basically a cemetery, whatever, of like a graveyard. One of them, I think the graveyard is the one you're buried at the church, and the cemetery is the one you're buried out in the middle of an open field.
Right, and the big middle open plot.
Right. So graveyard is near the church. Cemetery is
massive,
basically in a plot.
massive part of land. Just expands.
Right. Right. So you had this cemetery because it didn't say they built a church or anything. They just buried them over in a field, what they thought was, a perfect spot. And so now you got these angry, pissed off ghosts. Now, if anybody comes, so you already had a farmer who came out and basically removed the headstones. There's the first sanction of desecrating a plot, basically where these people were buried. So his house burnt down. That was the start. That's the start of it. And then, of course, you have the innocent child, which is very sad, that goes over there and he's just digging around thinking he's just playing in the dirt. Why they would take that out on a child like that, I don't know. But the kid got hit by a car. Very sad, no doubt. I did not know that. There's a lot of stuff I just read I really didn't know about that area. Yeah. But so now, what's left to do? I mean, so you got these people that are gone and they're PO'd, and people have disturbed their sites and paved over it and built a bridge there, and some of their relatives and ancestors have done swoop down in. Now they're in the river. So now you're taking that energy and spreading it into the river. Okay. I mean, that's a lot going on. So I wouldn't be surprised that all the stuff that's happening there. I mean, I tell you what, man, that would be, we might need to make a trip down there and do an investigation.
Interesting, man.
But anyway, yes, in passing, somebody lives around that area. They had mentioned that, they said, man, y'all should investigate the I-4 bridge. And I was like, why? And then I started telling you about it. And then
Yep.
on a phone call, they kind of told us both about it. And they're like, well, at least you should do a podcast about it. Well, there you go, sir. There's your little part of the I-4 bridge.
Interesting. Learned something new. Well, Mr. Dalton, it looks like it's about that time here at Theory Paranormal. This is going to conclude our podcast on the most haunted place in the United States of a town and the most haunted town in Europe, supposedly. I say that loosely. And the bridge of I-4, as you were saying.
Yes. So we did play a game, so that's the bonus. The bonus round.
There you
the
go.
I-4 bridge.
Yep. If this is your first time listening to Theory Paranormal, welcome. If you're a returning individual listening to us, thank you for returning. And if you didn't listen to our most recent podcast, say it again. We now have a website that is up at theoryparanormal.com. You can go there. You can submit any evidence that you have of paranormal findings, whether it's video, audio, or photos. If you want a professional review by me or Dalt, you can send it to us and we will be able to review it and get back to you and let you know what we find. That will stay personal between us to you only. And also, because we are old school, there is a telephone number that's listed on the website. If you just wanted to call and leave a voicemail, you can feel free to do that. Or you can even send a chat message, which is in real time. If we're available, we can respond to you. We try to hit all the different modalities and ways there for everybody across the world to communicate with Theory Paranormal. And if you really like being traditional, you can always send us an email at info@theoryparanormal.com. Anything
also,
that we...
don't forget the Facebook page, Theory Paranormal Facebook. We do have evidence up there, and it's also a means to communicate as well.
Yep. We also have that. And at the bottom of the theoryparanormal.com webpage, it will list all the different platforms that you will find Theory Paranormal on, just to let you know. Now, I know everybody has their special or favorite platform they're on, but I'll touch base on these quick. It's Podbeam. It's going to be Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. It is also going to be Amazon Music, Boomplay, Audible, YouTube Music, Spotify, Listen Notes, Podchaser, Player FM, and Apple Podcast. Now, feel free to listen to us on any one of those. And if you ever want to just know what the most recent podcast is that we published, you can just go on theoryparanormal.com. It'll be list there for you at your pleasure to listen to on the website if you wish to listen to it there. And we hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, commentary, thoughts, recommendations of any future podcasts that you potentially would like to hear, or you just want to send us a generalized message to say, hey, we like what you're doing, or we had a particular question, feel free to reach out to us any way that I explained, and we will be in touch. So that concludes it for us today, Dalton, and appreciate you showing up as always. And
showing up, yeah.
As we always say here at Theory Paranormal.
One more time, though, I like to welcome a new listener. Reached out to me. His name's Mike out of Texas. Actually, he streams all his stuff through YouTube Music. Found us on there. He's going to be a new listener. So thanks for checking us out, Mike. I hope you enjoy what you hear.
Oh, there you go. Welcome, Mike. Welcome to being part of the Theory Paranormal listener group. As we say at Theory Paranormal, don't be afraid to ask questions.